Let's turn our attention to a very serious issue, and it is, of course, that of bullying at school or among young people in their communities. Many young people fall victim to many forms of bullying, and some of the incidents have even resulted in families losing their loved ones after they could not take the pressure of being bullied. And one such memory, of course, is that of the late Limpopo school learner Lufuno Mavhunga, who took her own life after she was assaulted by another pupil last year. And in response to this and many other similar incidents across the country, the Western Cape Education Department is launching an anti-bullying campaign to assist in curbing the behaviour of bullying in the province. So for more on this, we're joined by the Western Cape MEC for Education, Debbie Schafer. Thanks so much for your time and good to have you with us, Ms. Schafer.
Thank you very much. Good to be with you.
So this topic is definitely one that requires special attention. And how exactly is the Western Cape grappling with bullying, especially things like cyberbullying, bullying that takes place on school grounds? And how huge is that problem in the province?
Yes, I think it's difficult to say how huge it is because I suspect there are a lot more cases than are actually reported, but we are aware that it is certainly a problem. And this is the second one of our major campaigns. We have ongoing efforts to attempt to deal with bullying in schools. But this particular campaign, as you mentioned, in memory of Lufuno, is aimed particularly at what we're calling Stop the Share. So it's one thing to be bullied, that's bad enough. But when people film it or and post it all over social media, then that adds significantly to the trauma. So our campaign is called Stop the Share, to encourage people to not only report bullying when they see it, but to stop filming it, stop taking photos of it and putting it on social media, stop liking it and sharing it and adding to the trauma that has already been, perpetrated on the victim. So we had a campaign about 2 years ago also. It was very successful, called Raise Your Voice, Not Your Phone, with a similar message. If you are somebody who is watching a bullying incident and then you film it with your phone, you are just as guilty as the bully. So we're really trying to get that message across, especially with the increase in cyberbullying and the social media access for people these days.
Ms. Schafer, let's talk about the program, very important issues that you highlight, because there is, of course, concern that too many people stand by and watch the bullying, and sometimes they get involved inadvertently. Someone is, recording this, not knowing that this could obviously later make the rounds on social media and exacerbate the bullying that is being perpetrated, that they are witnessing. So what are you going to do in your program to basically highlight to learners, especially how this is impacting negatively and basically also just giving more impetus to the bullying?
Yeah, what we've done is we've created a lot of resources which we have put on our website, and we are really encouraging people to go and look at that. We can look at it under the heading Anti-Bullying Western Cape Education Department. So all those resources that we've created highlight the harm that is done by doing exactly that. Just by liking it is bad enough, sharing or commenting on a harmful post. We've also created a set of online videos to show learners and the general public exactly how to stop the share for this type of harmful content. So I would really urge people to go to the Western Cape Education Department website and look for those resources.
And schools are, of course, microcosms of broader communities. What about bullying that isn't necessarily perpetrated at school, but it still involves the same learners? It takes place within the communities. Does this campaign offer any guidance with regard to that?
Well, anyone can access our videos, so it certainly can help. But you're right. I mean, we schools have to deal with multiple issues that are taking place in communities. And what we really, really need is a whole of society approach. And we need to get parents on board because, a lot of what people learn, they learn in the home. And we really need to get parents also on board to assist us. It's not for the education department or our teachers to have to teach their children everything about, good manners and respect for others. But of course, we do also teach those values. We've done a values campaign in our schools for the last few years to highlight specific values. And then we take one value every month and use that in our schools to try and highlight and emphasize and inculcate those values in our learners. We also have started a campaign called Transform to Perform, and that is to highlight teachers and learners. So there's a special program for learners, which is called Growth Mindset, because very often we find learners sometimes they have feelings of inferiority, which they actually then project onto others in the form of bullying to make themselves feel better. So we've got a growth mindset program to inculcate in them that they actually are worthwhile and they are worthy and they can do things in life, because very often they feel that they can't, particularly people in poor communities. So that is, we're doing a lot of different things, and in the hope that those values will also then spread into the home and the community.
Now, the issue of parental involvement is, of course, a critical one, and not just with regard to bullying, but holistically across the schooling spectrum. So just in terms of bringing parents on board, quite apart from hoping that they will access this information, is there a more concerted approach to make sure that parents are involved so that they can assist in this regard?
Look, our schools do always try very best to involve parents. I know that there are a lot of efforts to do that, because we know that if parents are involved in their children's education, then it is better all round. It's the same with safety issues. So our schools individually certainly do that. And now that we've launched this campaign, I will certainly ask that they ensure that they involve the parents as well in this particular campaign and make sure it is disseminated to the parents. But I know there is a lot of interaction with parents. Well, they certainly try to interact with parents. There are also a lot of complaints that the parents just aren't interested. And that is also a concern for us.
And that is, of course, unfortunate, because we have to get involved as parents, because otherwise the Department of Education is basically swimming against the tide. But just to take this further, how are you going to ensure that the resources of this campaign in particular are accessible and that they actually reach as far and wide of the intended audience as possible?
Well, obviously, we will disseminate it in our schools. The vast majority of our schools are connected to broadband, so they have access to Wi-Fi, to the internet, and most of our resources on our e-portal are zero rated also. So we have a lot of access in the Western Cape at our schools. We also do have a lot of Wi-Fi hotspots, so there really is quite good accessibility.
So we'll park that there, and of course we'll follow this because it is such an important issue. But thank you so much for your time this morning, Western Cape MEC of Education, Debbie Schafer.